Throughout solo leveling, Jin Woo has had many battles against tough, extremely powerful monsters, who he would end up adding to his Shadow army after slaying them. However, his fated duel with Igris and the resultant aftermath would mark the rise of his Shadow army and the beginning of an eternal companionship. During the job change quest, after fighting through numerous armored soldiers, Jin Woo finally makes his way to the boss room. Even from the outside, he can sense its presence and skill. Walking inside, Jin Woo enters what seems to be a king's throne room. The throne itself is empty, but we see a red armored leg step out of the shadows. Then Jin Woo suddenly feels a chilly sensation, just like he felt back in the double dungeon. Finally, the boss makes its appearance. A red armored knight steps out to face Jin Woo. Its name, Blood Red Commander Igris, tells Jin Woo that it's much different than the other soldiers Jin Woo faced. It's a knight that protects the empty throne. It steps down the steps to the throne before lunging at Jin Woo. He barely manages to avoid its first attack by ducking below the slash. Even though he dodged, the pillars behind him were easily destroyed. Jin Woo can tell Igris is insanely strong and attempts to strike its armor, but his dagger can't even pierce it. Jin Woo then looks up to see Igris preparing to bring its sword down on him and jumps away to avoid the crushing blow. However, through the debris, Jin Woo can see a glimmer of light, which turns out to be the sword flying his way. Jin Woo manages to avoid that blow too, and then hops back behind Igris. He's sweating as he recalls the armor's speed reduction is only applied if your strength is below 80. Jin Woo can definitely tell that Igris' strength is over 80, and its destructiveness is higher than his too. It's the same for agility, and its armor can block his dagger, meaning its defense is higher too. He questions if there's any way he can beat Igris since it's even stronger than he imagined. Returning his dagger to his inventory, Jin Woo doubts he can win without a weapon, but he can't deal damage if he can't penetrate the armor anyways. His only choice is to use his fists at the moment, but he thinks this could be worse. Igris then begins to do something strange. It drops its sword and then removes its cape. If Jin Woo just wants to throw hands, then it seems Igris is down for that too. It's a sign of chivalry, but Jin Woo doesn't believe it's taking him seriously. Igris then suddenly dashes forward, surprising Jin Woo as it grabs his neck area, pushing him back before grabbing his hood and flinging Jin Woo across the room into a wall. Jin Woo barely has time to react to that, as Igris then throws another punch, prompting Jin Woo to block with his arms. But even that isn't enough, as the punch still sends Jin Woo flying through the wall. He manages to land on the ground, but is severely damaged, losing around 500 health even after blocking. He would have been dead if he didn't have armor equipped, and would probably die if he keeps taking direct hits like this. Even without the sword, Igris is still crazy strong. Jin Woo questions how he's even supposed to put up a decent fight against this monster. But then Jin Woo suddenly lunges towards Igris, realizing even if he's weaker when it comes to strength, he still has speed. He had activated the sprint skill, increasing movement by 30% at the cost of losing mana every minute. Jin Woo does manage to land a punch, but Igris counters by bringing its elbow down to Jin Woo's head. Jin Woo does manage to block the strike with his forearm before the two begin throwing a barrage of punches at each other, culminating in Igris landing a punch, spinning Jin Woo midair. However, that activates the passive skill, Perseverance, which reduces damage by 50% now that his health has dropped below 30%. Thanks to that buff, Jin Woo believes he has a chance as he lands a kick on Igris' helmet. The kick lands, but then Igris' eyes light up, scaring Jin Woo before the monster grabs one of his legs, holding him upside down. Then he elbows Jin Woo right in the chest, sending Jin Woo crashing into the wall above the empty throne. Jin Woo then falls and starts panting heavily as he sits on the empty throne, seemingly beaten. Igris then stands to the side, looking down on Jin Woo before calling the sword to its hand. Igris is then about to cut Jin Woo's head off, but then it stops suddenly when Jin Woo blocks the sword with his hand. You see, he had the High Knight's Gauntlet equipped, which prevents hand injuries and grants a 3% physical damage reduction bonus. The clash is so powerful, it creates a shockwave around them before Jin Woo begins to resummon his dagger. He screams that he hasn't lost yet before stabbing Igris directly in the left eye through the opening in the helmet. He then tackles Igris into the ground while it's stunned. The monster then pulls out the dagger, but Jin Woo quickly returns the item to his inventory, not wanting Igris to use it. He then resummons it to forcefully stab Igris in the neck, activating a Vital Strike, which is basically a critical hit when he attacks vital areas. He launches multiple strikes on Igris' neck, before ending it by stabbing Igris upwards through the mouth. With that, Igris finally collapses, defeated. By beating Igris, Jin Woo is rewarded with the Red Knight's helmet, his first S-rank equipment, along with a leather pouch with tons of gold and a heartstone. Jinwoo also received the Dominator's Touch rune, granting him the skill to control objects without touching them. After that, the job change quest actually begins. The longer he lasts, the more points he will get that will give him a higher tier job. The job Jinwoo eventually gets is the Necromancer class, allowing him to control the dead by extracting their shadows through shadow extraction. Of course, one of the first shadows he chooses to extract is none other than Igris. However, the first attempt fails, which makes sense since Igris had been dead for 4 hours by this point. Jinwoo tries again and fails, so this time, on the third try, looking at the empty throne, Jinwoo speaks to Igris and tells it to stop protecting the seat of someone who has already left, and to try protecting him, who's standing right in front of Igris. Jinwoo says arise once more, and this time, Igris accepts, and rises once again as a knight in Jinwoo's shadow army. And that's how the fight between Igris and Jinwoo ended. In the end, Igris was defeated, but he would become one of Jinwoo's most trusted companions in solo leveling. But yeah, what did y'all think of the fight, and what do you think of Igris? Let me know in the comments, and as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please drop a like and subscribe. I got some more solo leveling content here too you can check out. Peace.